Thank you for purchasing Teacher Created Materials game show Frazzle. This is a video tutorial which will show you how to set up your own game from a blank template. We'll begin by opening up the Frazzle template from the CD. So from PowerPoint, we're going to click on File and go to Open. We'll navigate to the Frazzle template and click that and open up the file. And here comes the template. The first thing we would recommend to do is, this is on the CD, so it is a read-only file. We're going to want to save this. So we're going to click on the File button, and instead of Save, we're going to go Save As. And then we're going to change the name. Instead of Frazzle Template, the subject of our game that we're going to do for the tutorial is on Early America. So we'll call this Frazzle Early America, and hit Save. From here, we're going to now begin to edit the PowerPoint. For each round, there'll be 7 different terms. By going to the next slide, we'll see that this is where the first term is located. In the bottom right-hand corner, it shows you the number 1, that this is our first term. By highlighting the word term, will allow us to edit this. So we're going to put in our first individual. This is going to be George Washington. So simply type over and put in George Washington. And that is all that you need to do for the first slide, for the first term. Go to the second term. We're going to highlight that one, and we're going to continue on the same process. Our second individual we're going to put in will be Thomas Jefferson. Go down to the next term, highlight that as well, and moving on. We're going to do Patrick Henry. For number 3. For number 4, we're going to put in Thomas Paine. Number 5, we'll type in John Adams. Number 6 will be Betsy Ross. And the last one, number 7, will be James Madison. And you'll also notice in the bottom right-hand corner for number 7, there'll be an orange arrow, and this arrow is going to indicate the link that will take you back to the beginning of the round. After you've typed in all the terms, it's now time to move on to the answer section of the game. The answer section of the game is somewhat the most important part of the game, because this is where you're going to review all the terms and to be able to check for understanding with the students and see how well they did and be able to review. So the first slide that you're going to see will be answers, letting the students know that this is now the answer portion of the game. Going to the next slide is going to be a blank term. Now what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to rewrite what your first term was in that particular round. And if you remember, we had George Washington was our first individual. So we're going to retype his name in here. Now something else you can do is we're going to move our box up a little bit, because we're going to leave George Washington there. And from there, when this part of the game comes up, you can have a discussion about George Washington. Another thing you can do is you can insert an image of him. So we're going to click on Insert. We're going to go to Picture. And we're going to bring up a picture of George Washington to include, so our visual learners will be able to reinforce who this individual was. And so now we can, when this comes up, we can have a conversation about George Washington and what he did and why he is somebody important that we're studying for this particular unit. So we can go to the second term. The second term, we're going to type in the individual that was there, and that is Thomas Jefferson. And after typing in, we're going to, like we did before, we'll move this box up and create some spacing, and then we're going to go to Insert a Picture, and we'll find a picture of Jefferson and put him in there. Now we have already gone through and inserted images for the rest of them. So here you can see Patrick Henry, Thomas Paine, and moving on to John Adams. Now you can have just the name of the individual in the picture, but you can also include more. You may want to prompt yourself for questions that you may want to ask the students during the review session. So we're going to move the image of John Adams over here to the left a little bit, and then we're going to insert a text box. Click on Insert and go to Text Box. And then from in here, we're going to put in some questions that will prompt ourselves. So we're going to type in, why did John Adams defend the British in the Boston Massacre? Now from there, you can put other questions in there and have conversations about why he's somebody uh, we need to know when studying early America. And this is a good part during the game for the students to really sort of come down from the gameplay and really sort of work on those check for understanding. So after John Adams, we can continue to go on to the other individuals, and we see Betsy Ross and then James Madison. And after that, we're going to move on to our next round. Now, Frazzle will consist of multiple rounds. You can see round 2, ask for another name of the round. From here, you can pick other subjects. We're going to pick events. And term number 1, for example, will be Boston Massacre. Now, when you design your own game, you can, if you would want, you can make specific subjects for these rounds, like people or events, or they can just be random, or you could be silly things like starts with S or starts with the letter T. But we're going to move on down here, and we're going to show you what the final round will look like. So we'll scroll through from round 2, keep going down to round 3, and like you can see, there's just filled with terms that you're just going to highlight and type over. And then we get down to the bottom. On slide 67 will be Frenzied Frazzle. This will let you know that we're ready to move on to the final portion of the game. So the premise of Frenzied Frazzle is for students to identify what the big picture term is going to be. And by clicking on the next one, we can see we're going to give 3 terms, each one becoming more and more specific, ultimately leading up to the big picture. For our example, our big picture is going to be the Constitution. So like we did before for the other terms, we're going to highlight this, and we're going to type in, we're going to put in Constitution right here. And then we need to design what those 3 terms are going to be. So our most vague term, which we're going to highlight under term 1, and that is going to be Philadelphia. After Philadelphia, we think maybe we'll give them an individual, so we'll highlight term 2. We've already talked about him, but here's James Madison. And then for our third one, the word preamble. Most students will probably have heard that, and by putting those 3 together. And that's how we'll be able to do this particular question. And if you move on to the next slide, you can see that this repeats itself, and these are the 3 different slides that you're going to use to play Frenzied Frazzle. After all the slides are done, be sure to save again, and then open it up and enjoy the game.